but yeah, that whole thing comes in, and then we look at the larger concept of the Society of Explorers and Adventurers. I know we were eventually going to get to that. Let's just get to it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, the Society of Explorers and Adventurers is interesting. You have the Joe Rohde take is like the last days of the Raj, when you have unfortunately colonialist explorers going to all these other countries and saying we're going to take over, but the Hollywood, the imagined version is that, we're just going to go and explore. We're going to look at all these classic these countries that we're not really familiar with, that we think of as primitive, and just explore and take notes and have a good time. So the Society of Explorers and Adventurers, it first starts in Japan, starts in Tokyo Disney Sea. SEA, that's actually where it all comes from. SEA, and a place called Fortress Explorations, and so it starts with like Da Vinci and that sort of thing, and then moves to the Adventurers Club, and the Adventurers Club is a very interesting like crux point in what Tiki is, and how it connects, because they have a drink called the Kungaloosh, and they have like
yes.
A secret society whole thing, and so that whole concept feels very classic Tiki, even if it's not explicitly Tiki. And things get folded in. This is sort of in that second area. It's a bar. It's a themed bar. Everyone is in the society. There's a secret drink. There's a secret handshake. There's a show. But it's not explicitly Tiki. But what happens is, as Tiki grows and accepts more things, it would not be out of the realm to say, these society people came to a Tiki bar, came to Trader Sam's, and left their mark and left some of their like souvenirs behind. Sure.
Okay.
So then you go from there and you go into, Skipper Canteen, which is very like, it's more Indiana Jones than Tiki, but is Indiana Jones Tiki? Maybe, sort of. And then you move into like Disney Springs and Jock Lindsey's Hangar bar. Is that Tiki? Well, it's a themed bar. It's set in the 40s. And, if Indiana Jones is a little bit Tiki, or at least Tiki adjacent, so's that. So it's interesting because you can have themed bars that aren't specifically Tiki, but they're close enough for government work. They feel if a bar is themed well enough, it's going to feel like a Tiki bar. There is Sven Kirsten I talked about. He wrote the Book of Tiki. His whole concept is, if a bar does not have a Tiki carving in it, it is not a Tiki bar. I slightly disagree with him on that. I think, the original Dawn the Beachcomber, the original Trader Vic's, they didn't have Tikis in them originally, and we call them Tiki bars. So Dawn Beach never made a Tiki bar, if you sort of think about it. He kind of left Dawn the Beachcomber in 1940, and his wife took over, and she was like a brilliant business person and also had ties to the mob, but whatever. She made a Tiki. But she was great. But so is it Tiki? Is it not Tiki? The frustrating thing is sort of.
Well, and that, I mean, from what you've kind of explained, the parts that are Tiki is helping my definition and is helping me come to better understand it. And that's where let's briefly, because like you said, it could be a whole other thing. Let's briefly stop and talk Oga's Cantina and Star Wars Tiki, because I loved Oga's. I have my mugs behind me, my Porg and my Battle of Endor. Those are the only Tiki mugs I own, and they were because my son decided what everyone would drink so he could maximize the number of souvenir glasses that we got.
Oh, brilliant.
He did. He was like asking what kind of liquor that my wife and I liked. He's like, do you guys like rum? We're like, where are you getting this? He's like looking online because he wanted the Battle of Endor one. But anyways.
That's fantastic. That's awesome.
So, yeah. So we got them all. But it kind of fit the vibe for what I thought would be like a Tiki bar, being kind of a non-Tiki native.
So okay, so Star Wars Tiki. There were some people that I think got angry when Star Wars and Tiki started merging because they were both very deep fandoms that had their very specific things, and then when they started to merge, Star Wars people I think didn't like it, and Tiki people didn't like it. But there's that whole third realm of Star Wars Tiki people, and the issue I think originally arises. There's this Tiki mug maker called Geeky Tikis.
Yeah.
Reg, not historians, like not gatekeepers, but people that are really into classic tiki don't really love geeky tikis because they're not really tiki. But the Star Wars ones are very interesting because they took on a life of their own, and there are now people that will think of Star Wars tiki. Like, there are Star Wars based tiki bars, and why not? So the way I think, me personally, the way I think of Oga's is this is a version of a tiki bar that would be found on Batu.
Oh.
Yeah, because it doesn't have the same history as we would have here on Earth, but on Batu they have. I'm guessing they have like a version of Don the Beachcomber, a version of Trader Vic and Stephen Crane, and then they become this thing. I love Oga's Cantina, and the thing is a lot of tiki. We've talked briefly about this, but the drinks are a big part of it. It's not the only part of it. There's the decor, there's the music, there's the feel, the vibes, but the drinks are definitely a big part of it. And and rum is the basis of it all.
Yeah.
Because Don Beach was a rum runner, and when Prohibition ended, he had a whole bunch of rum that he couldn't do anything else with. So he's like, okay, I'm just going to make drinks out of this. And then when the cocktail revolution happened, people are like, we have fancy elevated cocktails for vodka and for gin and for all this other stuff. Where's the rum? And so that sort of came back into it. The zombie and the Mai Tai became like, here's how we can make these things not just popular but also like elevated, so they're going to be part of the canon of cocktails. So when you talk about rum drinks, like you said, at Oga's Cantina, a lot of things are based in rum, and so that's carrying on a tiki tradition. We have a DJ basically playing the Batu version of Exotica. DJ Rex is there.
Yes.
So, and I think a lot of it has to do with like people that grew up on Star Wars, either the 70s or the 90s when the original Tiki thing was happening and the revival was happening. Those people want to merge all the fun, magical things in their childhood. So I can only think of like somebody's taken to the Mai Kai when they're 8 after seeing like Empire Strikes Back, and they're like, oh, I'm going to put these two things together in my head. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where Star Wars Tiki comes from. Gotcha. Magical eras that are just merged together.
That's a good point to point out. I like how you placed Oga's as kind of like that, what would be the tiki bar in the Star Wars. I have a new appreciation for it in that way now, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I love Oga's. So
if you like this video, like and subscribe. If you really like this video, visit synergylovescompany.com for the full audio podcast.